Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video. Today I wanted to talk about the California NEVI Awards. So the 1 through 3, this is the July 14th, 2026 update, and they put a lot of information out there, and I kind of wanted to go into a deep dive. So I don't even consider this nerding out, as some would say, because we're not really talking about the hardware or anything else of that nature. This is more about how it's going to impact consumers, right, in terms of increasing the options, things that are available to them. And so, like I said, we're not going to necessarily talk about the hardware too much. Just know that the basic NEVI standard is there needs to be a minimum of 4 stalls that can each provide a minimum of like 150 kilowatts per stall simultaneously. That's like the sort of bare base minimum, and of course charging providers can go above and beyond that, but I would not expect too many of them too. Now, for those of you who are not in California, you might be looking at this and saying, wait a minute, we're still talking about NEVI? Isn't that over and done with? Well, welcome to California, where we talk a big game and we start our rhetoric early, but it takes us forever to do anything, right? I think of the California Energy Commission grant funds that went out in 2015, 2016, and we're talking about funding that was actually allocated. And I had been driving my Chevy Bolt EV for several years before even half of those stations had gotten installed, and some of them never did, right? So it's, by the time California gets around to actually building anything, it's way, way past it. But that being said, I think this baseline NEVI standard is good enough, and probably good enough for a long time into the future. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with this, but this is one of the reasons why I say EV owners should be focusing maybe a bit more on their average charging rate and their time to charge to 80% than any sort of a peak charging rate, because that peak charging rate does not really translate well into your actual experience when traveling, right? So you can have cars that peak at 200, 300 kilowatt, and they only can hold that for, maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're ramping down. Whereas you look at some of these premier charging profiles like the Hyundai and Kia EGMP, or the Porsche, where it's a very flat and high average charging rate, they're still, even when they're doing their 15 to 20 minutes from 10% to 80%, only averaging about 150 kilowatt, right? 160, maybe 170 kilowatt at most that they're averaging. And that's why when you see a lot of those cars using 150 kilowatt charging, instead of taking 15 to 20 minutes to go from 10% to 80%, they take 20 to 25 minutes, right? So it's like not a big deal. And these NEVI sites are still valid for reasonably efficient modern EVs that can travel 250 to 300 miles on a charge. I want to show it in a map too, because even though California has a lot of charging infrastructure, a lot of it is old, right? And a lot of it isn't as capable as these NEVI sites. So I wanted to dive into this a little bit and show the actual value that is being presented here. They have on this website, I'll go into a little bit more, this California Energy Commission website, but they have the sort of distribution on a map. And one of the things that I wanted to call attention to is just juxtaposing it with PlugShare, where I actually filtered to only so all 53 plus networks, including the other, but only 150 kilowatt or faster charging, and only stations with 4 or more stalls. So this basic standard that we're looking at for NEVI. So NEVI should be at least as good as the sites that are shown. But if you look at this plug share map, you'll notice that there are a lot of the same gaps, right? So on the NEVI award, right? So you see this huge gap to the west of Reading and Chico that these sites aren't filling, and then to the north of Willow Creek and Reading, right? And in fact, this is a drive that I might do one of these days. It's kind of an impossible EV drive because it comes out at Wairika down to Willow Creek, so you're following Klamath River, and there's just no charging at all. And then of course this area where you see like Susanville and north of it, this is an area, and this is why I push back on the people who say, well, you have it good in California compared to places like West Virginia. This corner of California is bigger than West Virginia, and there's nothing here in terms of the upcoming NEVI. And if you focus in on it, right, again, bigger than the state of West Virginia, and from Portola to the Oregon border, there's nothing, right? There's nothing. So yeah, like I said, going down through Happy Camp and Hoopa down to Willow Creek, there's basically nothing there right now. And again, this is filtered for 150 kilowatt charging, but in 4 stalls or more. But even if you take that off, there's not a whole lot here. And then there are, full disclosure, there are 2 Tesla supercharger sites, one in Alturas and one in Susanville, and that's it, right? I think they're like maybe 8 stall supercharger sites, V3, so no magic dock. You have to bring your adapter. They're not going to be very fast for any of the 800 volt cars. And then if you have issues with, supporting Tesla as a company, right, you're kind of put into this awkward position as an EV driver where they're literally your only option if you're taking Highway 395 north of Reno up into Oregon. You don't have any other options other than level 2 and a charging station in Portola. And most EVs still can't do 300, 350 miles, 400 miles on a single charge in wintertime through 6,000 foot mountains, right? So having no charging infrastructure there is a real big problem. NEVI isn't addressing any of it. And in fact, you look along here, this is Highway 395, a really important sort of side travel corridor, one of the most scenic drives in the country, and absolutely nothing from NEVI supporting it other than this one in El Dorado, and that's on US Highway 50. So, and that's really more of a, looks like, yeah, maybe a South Lake Tahoe support. So it's actually like in the city, in a town, not really supporting this. And again, if you look on PlugShare along Highway 395, there's some stuff, but not really that, why'd you do that? Not really that much in terms of what's actually there, right? You have some Electrify America, a Rivian that's been opened up. And then, of course, once you get into Mammoth Lakes, there's a Rivian. Lee Vining has a Rivian now. Bridgeport has, this is an old Electrify America site that's been updated. So there's some along this, but again, you're in the high mountains, going along a highway, wintertime. It can be, pretty hard to get through here sometimes. And then, of course, there are some slower charging options along the way, but we're looking at NEVI equivalent. And you'll see that a lot of these same Highway 99, Interstate 5, so a lot of these same corridors that NEVI is filling in. Now, one thing too, and I realized this after the fact, one of the, I think, California's big blind spots in terms of EV coverage is they define low-income communities differently from, they're different from the disadvantaged communities, because disadvantaged communities have to be both low income and have some sort of environmental issues, right, in terms of air quality, things like that. And that's why this massive section of Northern California didn't get covered, because it qualifies under the low income, but because their industries are primarily agricultural and like tourist based, national forests, national parks, things like that, there's very little pollution. So even though they're disadvantaged in terms of income and nobody's going to voluntarily build EV charging there, they're not considered a high risk area because the air quality is so much cleaner, the water is so much cleaner, whereas you go to the Central Valley and there's a lot of pollution from industry. The water's polluted, the air's polluted, lots of dust, things like that, both ag and industrial pollution. That's why that Central Valley got a lot more support in terms of charging infrastructure. And you can see it here, just the number of chargers that are built in this central portion of California, where most of these would be considered disadvantaged communities. So NEVI isn't really doubling down on this necessarily, but they aren't addressing the bigger gaps right now in the state, which, like I said, are Highway 395, both the southern and the northern portions, and then, of course, the overall North State has very little support given the overall size of the area. And this is that point that I need to keep hammering home is, in the United States in particular, when it comes to EV charging infrastructure, it is not just a population issue, it's a geography issue. So yeah, we have 340 million people to cover in the United States in terms of 350 million maybe in terms of the United States to cover in terms of EV charging. The bigger issue is many states in the United States are bigger than most countries in the rest of the world, right? So there's a massive geographical hurdle that EV owners need to be able to get over. And then also, just like, if you want to kind of look at the big picture, California in the United States is number 3 in terms of states as far as geographical size is concerned, but they're number 1 in terms of population, number 1 in terms of EV ownership, and number 1 in terms of passenger miles driven, right? So all of those other factors mean that by far California needs to have more charging than every other state. And that's why you see a lot of charging providers focusing here. And it really doesn't solve the chicken and egg question, right? Because California has high EV ownership. Is that driving the EV charging, or is the EV charging driving the ownership? It's probably a little bit of both. But either way, I wanted to look a little bit more at these sites. And then also I wanted to call out some of the charging providers, not necessarily in a bad way. I might have some criticisms, but there are a number of new charging providers who are building hardware here. And I'm always concerned when new charging providers come on the scene and we're not quite sure what to expect from them. So I found a couple that I'm kind of excited about, and then a couple that some red flags are going up. And then, of course, just wanted to talk about some of the known quantities, right? Some of the existing players and what we can expect from them. And then, even though I'm recording this, I guess a month after this site went live, I do want to say that a majority of these chargers are unlikely to be open in 2026. And most of that has to do with just how long it takes to get a site built and permitted, and then, reviewed and approved, right? Inspected and approved in California. We're talking literally hundreds of days. And so I don't expect most of these chargers to be open this year. But I will say that a couple of charging providers that I do think will open their sites will be Tesla, who has a few sites, and then Electric Era, and then possibly Skycharger if they are aligned with Electric Era. There's usually an overlap, but the two don't necessarily work together. But outside of those, any of the other sites that get built and opened this year, I'll be pleasantly surprised. All right, so just looking through here, this website is actually pretty cool. You have the basic information here. You can view the records table, so if you want to look at it less as a map and more as just a table, you can do that. And then, of course, just close the table if you want to see the map again. So very intuitive site. And then, of course, you have the awardee. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I forget how it was sorted now. Let's just say it was sorted that way. Yeah, I'm not actually sure which way it was sorted to begin with. But anyway, this is where I got to see some of these sites. And actually, it looks like I missed one as well. Maybe I should have organized it from alphabetical by awardee to begin with. But yeah, so there's Ampaway, Big Incentive Group, Citizen Energy, Collectron, Electric Era, Everged, EV Gateway, and some of these I dove into because I didn't know what they were and I wanted to see. And then, of course, there's EVgo only has one. Loves has a number of sites, and I will say this too. One of the sites that's missing, and I saw this when these awards went out, and I was really concerned, is this is the Skychargers one in a Santanella. But if you scroll in, there's, well, this map is not very great, but Santanella is what I consider one of the most important interchanges on Interstate 5, because what you end up doing is you can cross over here. Yeah, I don't like this map. Let's look at the PlugShare map. So yeah, I used this Rivian site at the Boltmus, right, actually, when I checked in there. But if you scroll in, if you search here, this is a TA Travel Center where there is an upcoming BP Pulse site that hasn't gone live yet. But there's also a Love's Travel stop here. And this interchange, this I-5 interchange, is what I consider one of the most important along I-5 in California, because you connect through this Highway 33, Highway 152, and basically, regardless of where you are going in the state, whether it's the South Bay, down Highway 101, up toward, Stockton and Sacramento, this interchange here is super important because it's basically the point where a lot of people traveling between the Bay Area and Los Angeles get off of I-5 and come into the South Bay, right? It's basically the fastest way to get into San Jose, and then some of the South Bay, South Peninsula. So this is a super important interchange. And as you can see, like I said, I have this filtered by NEVI standard. There is also a Tesla supercharger there, but again, NEVI makes a difference when it comes to 800 volt charging architecture. And a lot of, if not most of, the Tesla superchargers that are out right now do not have 800 volt native support. So the fact that they're not here, I think, is valid, right? And so this Santanella gap and the fact that the Sky Chargers is still going in, but the Loves is no longer here. And it used to be. Now, I visited this site, and it's a very small lot, and I think that's why that Loves one is omitted. And so that's a big disappointment in these announcements. This one is the Universal. And so otherwise, though, if you want to go through the filters, and I think this is maybe the best way to look at this map, is just filtering by the different, oh, I wonder if I have to actually type in. Oh, so I didn't do that. But yeah, so here you can see of the Loves, they're updating the one in Tulare that I visited. That was the BTC Power Gen 4 hardware. So it looks like that site is getting an update to the new NEVI standard. But they have this one down here, if I can click on it. That's the Rivian in Indio, I think. Yeah, or Coachella. So they have a Loves down there and Coachella on State Route 86. So that one's going to be a nice add, but the more important ones, in my opinion, are these ones here on I-5, where they have the one in Bakersfield. And actually, I guess that one would be 99. And then they have the one here in Lost Hills. So you'll notice Santanella would be right in the middle of this, because the next Loves that's going in isn't going to be until you get to Lodi. And this is the one that's right next to the Lodi Pilot Flying J that I visited. And up here, this is the Williams one, another very important, because it's right here on the junction of Highway 20, and it serves Highway 20 better. You can get off of I-5 and go over there, no big deal. But if you're traveling Highway 20, it's literally like you're just turning off the highway, going into the Loves, filling up, and then getting back on the highway again. And then, of course, the other one is the Corning, right across the street from the BP Pulse that went in. So Loves is getting a decent update. We'll see. And then I guess they have, yeah, I already clicked on that one. That's the Tulare one. So Loves is the one that I'm excited to see, because again, it's a Travel Plaza site. I'm worried that they didn't get the Santanella one, but the Santanella one, also that site just didn't really, that was such a small lot. I can understand why they didn't have that. I want to see if there's anyone in particular that I wanted to look at. I did mention Electric Era. I think they're the ones that are most likely to have their sites done probably this year. So they have this one here in Auburn. They're saying State Route 49, but probably just off of I-80. Yeah. So that's the I-80 corridor there. That's a really important one. One in central Sacramento. It's on Highway 99. Oh, it's Florin Road. So Florin Road's a major road in Sacramento. Turner Road here in Lodi. One in Tracy, it looks like. Yeah. And then Tracy, again, I-205. There's a Mercedes-Benz 14 stall station that's going in, which again, it's that I-205 corridor there is another really big, important connecting route. Once you get over here towards like Livermore, there's a lot more charging too. So this is a well-covered route, but again, you're talking about the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, where there's a massive amount of EV ownership. I mean, Tesla used to have their headquarters in Fremont. You have, I believe, Lucid is headquartered out of Newark. So you're talking about headquarters for EV companies, right? This better have a lot of charging. And then, of course, Electric Era down here in San Jose. And then I'm not going to know a lot of these sites just off the top of my head, but all right. So then here is in San Rafael, and San Rafael is just again, the North Bay. When you're coming up, Highway 101, right? This is where you, and then of course you'll cross over here. 580, yeah, the Richmond San Rafael Bridge. I forgot what that was called, but you know, the Richmond, East Bay, San Pablo, Berkeley, Oakland, that sort of area, connect over. You go that way rather than going through San Francisco and I-80 and the Bay Bridge. So, okay, finally opened up. And then this one is on Lafayette and Mount Diablo Boulevard, huh? Interesting. So, yeah, old Contra Costa County. Now, I think maybe more importantly for Electric Era is they are also starting to support corridors. So this Highway 101 in Salinas has a decent amount of charging. I guess it is 2 awards in Monterey. So you almost can't have too much charging along this Highway 101 route. And then King City is going to be huge, right? So this is one of those dead zones in the middle of Highway 101. This is a very precarious route to drive because there is so much of a dead zone in between, and the weather can be so varied that I've had to bail a number of times driving an EV and stop here in King City just as that sort of halfway point, because you'd think, oh, 150 miles at highway speeds, no big deal. No, it's a big deal sometimes. And so just having that as a sort of a safety net in King City is super important. Santa Maria also has a number of EV chargers now, and then Oxnard. I'll have to check exactly what that address is in Oxnard, but you know, I used to live in the area. So, oh, okay. So this is across the street from this is a really big retail plaza here. Lots of stuff to do. I used to use that one all the time, and then this is the Collection. So this one will be a little bit south of that. I don't know that I've ever gone into this shopping plaza. It's kind of overshadowed by these other 2 shopping plazas to the north. So yeah, I'm not really as familiar with this location, but it's nice to have other options, I guess. So pretty cool. All right. So back to the award winners. So Electric Era, like I said, they're one that I would pay attention to because I think their sites are going to be done faster. And again, they're one of those charging providers who I've had a huge amount of luck with in terms of first-time activation success, always being able to access a working charger, great back-end support, quick installation times. So they're definitely one of the more interesting ones to look at. Now, let's see, let's just look at the elephant in the room, Tesla Incorporated. So I think they only had one, right? I think they only have one. And it's down here in the Tijuana jail. So here we are in the Tijuana jail. So, yeah, right there on the United States-Mexican border. I thought, oh no, they did have one more. I thought they had 2. Yeah, and then here's one more in Campbell, California. So Campbell is also the headquarters for ChargePoint. So again, massive EV industry, right, in the Bay Area. So you'd expect to see a little bit more support there as well. And then I'll look at Rivian. Rivian got almost 8% of the total allocations. I thought they had one. Oh, they might not have. They weren't the one in Crescent City. But the fact that they're going in Willow Creek This is sort of on brand, like I said, this route up through Happy Camp into Wairika along Klamath River. It's the kind of site that I would expect a Rivian owner to want to drive, right? It's a very scenic, very nice drive. And then here in Shasta, State Route 44, Churn Creek Road, there's a lot of charging that's gone in Redding. Again, if you look at plug share here, even by NEVI standards, right? These are all sort of technically meeting that NEVI standards, but Redding is probably one of the most important interchanges, cross-section corridors in Northern California, where you have Highway 299 going east and west. You have Highway 44. This is one that goes up towards like Lassen Volcanic National Park. So lots of really important connecting routes here. And then, of course, the elephant in the room there is the I-5 corridor going north and south. So this is just a really important junction and one of the biggest cities in Northern California. So having that type of infrastructure there is warranted. Then, they got one here too on Highway 101 in Petaluma. So they're just sort of maybe filling in their gaps. Oh, and I think this is the one that was really interesting is the Big Sur. Because right now, Big Sur, Highway 101, or sorry, Highway 1, and then Big Sur, this is by many, it's not just me saying this, this is by many considered to be one of the most scenic drives in the United States, if not one of the most scenic drives in the world. Yeah, so it also has no charging infrastructure. So this isn't even a matter of meeting the NEVI requirements, right? When you go from Morro Bay to Monterey, this Highway 10 or this Highway 1 corridor, there's not a whole lot, right? There's some level 2 at like San Simeon and places like that, but this super scenic route, it's like over 100 miles of no charging infrastructure. So Rivian getting a station here in Big Sur is a big deal. And then again, I would say kind of on brand with their sort of adventure network kind of shtick, if you will. And then here, Kettleman City. This is just more electron gasoline on the fire because Kettleman City has a lot of charging infrastructure. Again, just kind of compare it with the maps. And then now Tesla isn't showing up here, but their first big supercharger is in Kettleman City. They added another one in Kettleman City. There are some other charging providers, but they don't quite meet the bar, right? So the EV range one technically does, but there's like some Chargetronics. There's Caltrans chargers here in Kettleman City, but those are all under 150 kilowatts. So there are 2 Tesla superchargers here, and then there's of course this sort of iconic Electrify America charger with the canopy, the solar panels. Really nice place, great place to get some tacos, by the way. Oh, that's a nice picture. I like that one. So yeah, Electrify America has a really nice station here in Kettleman City. And then, like I said, EV Range. I believe they're the ones with that EV Connect backend, and I couldn't get it working. So hopefully they fix it. And they technically qualify for this, but Rivian having a station here in Kettleman City is again also going to be important. Kettleman City is this really important connecting route. And then they also have a few down here too. So Marina del Rey. Is this one Redondo Beach? Okay, and then San Clemente. So yeah, Rivian has a lot going in here as well. Like I said, 8%. So those two I'm kind of excited to see. And then I'll say this too. I didn't look up their network outside of this. EV Gateway has 14% of the allocations, and I'm really concerned with this because EV Gateway, I can't say that I've never gotten them to work. I have been able to find one station with one charger that was working one time. And I think it's since been shut down. They were like the BTC L3S slim chargers. And it was funny because I think Kyle from Out of Spec visited, and he was using the superchargers that were basically in the same parking lot. And he was just like, why the hell did they even put these chargers in there? And, you know, if they were working, I think they would be a valid implementation, right? A bank of 50 kilowatt chargers in a hotel parking lot, not a big deal, right? The problem is every single one of them was dead except for one when I visited. And when Kyle visited, all four were dead. And then, of course, the site has been done since. And so EV Gateway, I worry about throwing more money at a charging provider that has yet to get their crap together, right? I mean, okay, they're building them in cities. Okay, cool. Martinez is getting a couple. Modesto, it looks like, is Ceres. Okay, well, Ceres actually was one of the locations where they had a really nice EVgo charger at a Flyers gas station that I think is either being pulled or now out of commission. But it was just an old 50 kilowatt charger, so worked for my Bolt, but not really a modern charger. And then, of course, EV Gateway looks like they got most of their charging down here in Southern California. So have one in Ventura, Moore Park, Simi Valley. So where is this one in Moore Park? Oh, I think this is the one that I saw. Oh my goodness. I need to put this up on a map. Here we are in Moore Park. This is Highway 23 connecting down to Thousand Oaks. I've done a few tests here. This is where I did the power test in my Bolt EV, just going down past Tierra Rajada and turning around, and then just basically every 10% seeing how the power maximum power in my Bolt EV managed. But yeah, so that's Highway 23, Highway 118, which is kind of a highway, kind of not really. But if you're in, say, the North San Fernando Valley, anywhere like Santa Clarita, you're probably going to take Highway 126. But if you're anywhere in the northern San Fernando Valley and you kind of want to get out of town quickly on a side route, you take this Highway 118 through and then cut across to Highway 126, which then gets you onto Highway 101, and then you're out of town, right? So it's an important back route that you can take and avoid all of this traffic in Highway 101 from Camarillo to Thousand Oaks, because this Westlake Village, Calabasas, it's a mess sometimes. So this is a nice little farm route, back road. I used to drive a lot when I was working, and even though it's only one lane each direction, you can sneak out, right, the back way. But what I wanted to point out here is this is an absolutely amazing retail center, right? So they've got an In-N-Out, a Del Taco, a Natural Cafe, has really great food, Panda Express, there's a Denny's if you want that, there's pizzeria, there's a dumpling shack, there's a Jimmy John's. There used to be, I think it's a Jamba Juice, there used to be a really good coffee shop there too. Lots of stuff here, lots of options in this. Where are they putting it? EV Gateway is putting it on Science Drive. This is an industrial park. There's nothing here, right? Like there is nothing here that anyone traveling would want to use. I think this is maybe a new thing. No, this is a furniture store. A furniture store. So, like, I guess, did I, is this City Hall? Is that what they're trying to say it is? So maybe it's for county city employees. I'm sorry, but you're in Ventura County, Moore Park City. You should be building your own charging. If it's for a government building, you shouldn't be taking up NEVI funds for it. I'm sorry. I think NEVI funds should be earmarked for consumers, not government agencies. So yeah, that one was just ridiculous. Like I said, they're so close and yet so far away. And then this entire plaza here with all those amenities, everything there, not a single charger, not a single public charger there. So it's kind of a travesty in my opinion. And then this one is over here in just Cooner Drive in Simi Valley. I'd have to check that address. I might know what's there. Yeah, because this is a big exit off of Highway 118, but I don't recall what specifically is there. So EV Gateway, like I said, I'm raising the red flag because their sites also tend to struggle. Buena Park, I guess if you're going to go to like Disneyland or something, Santa Ana, Yucaipa here, Calamasa. So yeah, I don't know. And then, they got one in Hemet. So I don't know. And then, in fact, now I can't remember if they were the one, they have 3 in Blythe. And I can't remember if they were the one who put one in Blythe that just never worked. It just didn't work. And left a number of people stranded. I'd have to look up if that was them or a different charging provider. It was only a 40 kilowatt charger anyway, but it was like important and never worked. So 3 in Blythe. This is a really important juncture right here, though, if you're going like Interstate 10 over to, into Phoenix, right? So, yeah, it's good to have the charging there, but I'm worried about EV Gateway getting that funding, right? That's with great power comes great responsibility, and so far they have not lived up to it. But one of the other things that I wanted to do, right, like, so just looking at this overall, I wanted to kind of focus on the big picture, what's being built and where. So we're not really getting any support Highway 395 or a majority of the North State outside of some of these corridors here, like the Highway 99. I guess they're calling it State Route, but whatever, it's Highway 99. So Chico can definitely use some more support, and it's getting a couple of sites. And then, of course, I-5 is getting some decent sites. So it's not all bad. And then, like I said, Electric Era filling out some of their corridors. And then I guess I did want to talk about 060, one charger, but they're the ones that were partnered with GM Energy, right? So they're kind of a known quantity as well. They were using the ChargePoint hardware, so I'll be interested to see, but they're just a single pip on this. But what I did want to look at outside of the sort of the big players, because I think there's also a single pilot also down here near the Tesla one, and I believe they said this one was also under construction in San Diego. So it's nice to see they have this pilot center down here. I don't know how frequently this one is used, but it's, again, if you're going across the border, is probably when you're traveling between San Diego, Tijuana, and then going in or out of Mexico. You'll probably want that one, but I believe that's the only pilot that was on there. And then, like I said, EVgo. Now I'm forgetting where theirs was, but they had a single one as well. It was here. Oh, it was in Davis, I believe. Yeah, so just a single one in Davis. So EVgo, big presence in California. They're not exactly one that I'm worried about gaining any sort of a footprint or traction. Like I said, I think this is maybe biggest for electric era Rivian and Loves of the known charging providers, I would say, and you can see that they're filling in a lot of areas. So I'm really excited to see that. Happy to see those charging providers getting a few more stations in the ground. Loves in particular, I want to say, and then of course Electric Era is sort of my pet favorite network just based on experiences and what they've been able to do. But what I also wanted to do is take a little bit more of a dive into some of the lesser known awardees because, like I said, I think there were some good things that I saw and some bad things that I saw. Let's start with the good one. I guess one of the good ones. On Point, if you will. So On Point is one of the ones that I'm kind of excited to see because I'm just going to call this out right now. They look like they have some good locations, but if you are a charging provider and on your website you do not have a locations portal that is focused on the EV driver as the audience, I think there's a problem, right? On Point was a bit of a pleasant surprise. I haven't used any of their charging sites yet, so pending that. But if you look at where some of their locations are, they tend to focus, I wouldn't even say rural, but they've got a particular focus, it seems like, to the types of locations where they build. But more so too is like this one in Twin Falls. They're at oh, this is Travelers Eden. So this is a different location. Oh, they actually call it out. I see what. So they have something called Jackson's Store. I have not used a Jackson store before, but let's focus in on them because they are building a number of ones. This was the one in Weaverville. So this is why I was confused. I thought this one was NEVI funded. It's not. So this is filling in an important gap. They're showing this picture of a canopy covered, I guess 8-stall, 4-stall with 4 dispensers. I don't know if they split power or not. 4 CCS1, 4 NACs, up to 360 kilowatt. Total connectors are 8, but I don't know if those can be used simultaneously or if they have 8 stalls dedicated. So this is all sort of pending. But another thing, 24/7 access at these Jackson restrooms, convenience store, Wi-Fi. So this is another super exciting travel plaza type location to be looking for. It's checking a lot of boxes already. I'll say the one thing that is a red flag for me right now is 60 cents per kilowatt hour plus a $1 flat fee. 60 cents per kilowatt hour is super expensive, and a $1 flat fee makes people want to dwell longer. Faster charging EVs are probably going to gobble up that dollar's worth of energy pretty quickly. It's less than two kilowatt hours worth of energy, but I don't think it's worth it, right? I think, and then these flat fees, if they're a session fee, also run into the issue of if you have any reliability issues whatsoever, it's really going to turn a lot of customers off, because if it's $1 to activate, the session craps out, the station underperforms, and I need to move, I'm literally just throwing down dollars, right? You don't want to do that, right? As a charging provider, just do the straight up 60 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you don't think that that's good enough, maybe do 65. And I mean, I know people don't like that heavier pricing, but again, this is California. Now, I will say their pricing looks the same in like Idaho. Probably not appropriate for Idaho. Oh, that actually refreshed pretty quick, updated pretty quick. But yeah, they're showing the same pricing structure in Idaho. In California, you'll get away with it because California is just super expensive. But yeah, like Lakeport, Cloverdale, looks like 2 sites in Santa Rosa. Really excited to see one in Fort Bragg here. And then again, like I said, I've never used a Jackson's store before, so I actually looked them up. I mean, it looks mostly like a convenience store type location, but if they're putting in charging, I would say as an EV owner, you want to get used to this, familiarize yourself with this name, this store, 24/7 bathroom access, on-site snacks and amenities. This is going to be really, really cool. And they have their own location map, and you can see where all of their locations are. So the fact that I haven't used them before is just, I think, happens chance, right? If I'm going through Weaverville or whatever, I'm probably not going to be using them. I mean, frankly, I kind of bypass Weaverville. It's a little bit off of Highway 299. Actually, this one, it looks like it's right there. So, yeah, normally I'm down here more like towards Douglas City, which is, yeah, I guess that's still technically 299, right? Going down Highway 3 into like Hay Fork and then Highway 36. But if you're going up through 299 and you hit Weaverville, and then like I said, also here in Willow Creek, another name that's popped up, right? You had the Rivian getting theirs there. But so having these Jackson's stores, this looks like it could make for a really compelling charging network, travel network that's not really focused on the main interstates as much, but has some really good coverage in areas that maybe don't have enough coverage, going up towards like Yellowstone, Missoula, Spokane. So I'm really excited to see more about. I'll test out one of these Jackson stores just to see what I think of it, and then but. Like I said, the fact that this On Point EV is getting a bunch of California NEVI awards, and they have all of these sites upcoming. Super excited to see. This is probably one that stood out as something that I'm excited to see. Another one was the universal EV chargers. So they had the most, it looks like, of all, and they had almost 16% of the total NEVI award. So they're putting in from down here in Mexicali. What is that? Is that Yuma? Felicity. Okay. And then all the way up to Chico here on State Route 90. That's the one on Mangrove. So they're spread out all over. They have, what is this, the Cloverdale? So this Universal EV LLC, they're mostly in the Central Valley, it looks like, in Southern California. But like I said, they got nearly 16% of the awards. And, they're looked like they're trying to be a proper CPO. We'll have to get more into it. But then this is the other thing, right? Again, they have a portal for EV drivers that tells me a lot about their actual intentions. And then this is the reason I'm not really familiar with them, is their current locations appear to be primarily, this sort of stretch along, Texas, and then up into the Midwest, along the Mississippi River. They have one here in New Mexico. Is this? Oh, El Paso, Mexico. I mean, Texas. So yeah, it looks like they're primarily Texas based, but Yeah, up into Illinois as well. So yeah, I'm interested to find out. But like I said, the fact that they have an EV portal is that's a huge tell for me that they're serious about what they're trying to do. So I'm kind of interested to see. And then of course, if any of you have any experience using universal EV chargers like in Texas or Illinois or whatnot, yeah, I'd love to hear that. Now, this is where I said some of these others. Yeah, so this is like a horticulture business, but then also EV charging without the capital hassle. So this is almost more like they're just trying to be a middleman with a business as opposed to partnering with a business, if that makes sense. So cool, they have some horticulture stuff that they're doing. I think we're all jonesing for some clean lettuce these days. But in terms of the charging, it really seems like they're mostly just sort of fishing for funding and trying to be a middleman with business, and that kind of, we'll see, right? Like, the reason I think maybe I'm worried about that, and they really need to talk to their graphic designer because this is not what you want. But yeah, the reason I'm worried about that is a lot of these are, let's take the money, let's do the bare minimum, plant the chargers in the ground, and then run, and not really pay attention to whether they're working or not, whether they're supporting the needs of the EV owner or not, and that's a concern. Ampaway is another one where it looks like they're selling EV products, right? Like in terms of the charging hardware, they're trying to sell charging solutions, fleet solutions. So I mean, that's not a bad thing, right? But when it takes more than just having hardware to be a charging network provider, right? So this is almost like we're gonna pass the buck and hand this hardware on to someone else, and hope that they take care of their EV owners, because we're not. Like, I hate to say it that way, but it really does seem that way. And like I said, I'm not seeing anything for an actual consumer focused EV charging experience here, right? As opposed to, like I said, the On Point and the Universal EV. So big incentive group, Ampaway, EV Verged again, cool looking hardware, great, but you know, consulting, fundraising, integrating, none of this is all just corporate gobbledygook that does not tell me that you are going to be supporting EV drivers. Citizen Energy, sort of same thing here. Okay, like, great sales pitch, great website, but I'm kind of worried about the EV owner. Same thing with sustainable energy services. Good, you do project development, but it's like I said, this is almost more like middlemen trying to profit off of the funding from NEVI, and we'll have to see. But again, if most of these stations aren't working within a couple of years, I would not be surprised, right? Like, if you start out not customer focused, I don't see how you get there eventually, right? That needs to be your starting, foundational principle. And then the other one I kind of looked up here is Walai or Walia Fuels, I guess. So this looks to me like an individual gas station that received NEVI award funding, which is fine. Like, I would actually prefer this if you're gonna, because they don't have any web presence, anything else. I just wanted to look them up as an award winner, and you know, they're saying here 910 Baywood Drive, Petaluma. If it's literally just a gas station, if it's literally just a gas station that wants to install NEVI compliant chargers, I am actually more for that than I am. I don't know if you would call it like private equity or fund, like corporate middleman. You know, I would much rather see individual private businesses applying for NEVI and receiving NEVI grant funds to build chargers at their business location than to see middlemen pulling in grants, creating some sort of a weird LLC, and then trying to work with businesses, right? I would much rather see either be a CPO or be a business that installs chargers. Don't be a middleman, you know, grant fund distributor, right? That doesn't work in my experience, and I'm not expecting it to work in the future. So anyway, like I said, I'll leave a link to this too in the description of the video. I wanted to go into this as a bit of a deeper dive, so it's going to be a longer video, just kind of talking about what I'm seeing from these rounds of NEVI funding. Like I said, I would expect a majority of these to not even be open in 2026, outside of Tesla, maybe the pilot in down there in San Diego, Tijuana, and then the electric era, maybe the Sky Chargers. Any of the others, actually, maybe I'll close out on one more sort of known quantity here is, are they gonna really? Oh, they actually have 2 entries. Let's see if it's different. I don't know if that changes the numbers, but Red E Charging LLC, Red E Charging. So combined, that's 7% of the total allocation. So they have this one here in Winchester, San Clemente, Malibu, and you know, I haven't had great experiences with I keep clicking on the electric era. That's where I want to go. Yeah, I haven't had great experiences with the Red E charging. This one is really close to the electric era in Oxnard, but it looks like they went the other direction. So they both missed the collection, and then this really sort of, I would say, important strip mall with lots of different food options. There used to be an Electrify America, or I mean an EVgo station right here in front of this Chipotle that I think has been pulled, but that was a great sort of late night option for grabbing food and charging up. And then again, there's Tesla supercharger over here in the collection. So both electric era and Red E both missed the 2 most important locations, I would say, in Oxnard, and they didn't miss by too much. But yeah, this will be closer to me, because right now, Red E, the closest charging station from me, is almost 200 miles away, just not an option to use it. So they have one going in Campbell, Stockton, and then over here in, is it Roseville? Rockland. Okay, well, Rockland is going to be a very usable site too. So especially this one right here, it's going to be right off of Interstate 80. It's a very, very usable. And then even this one, right, I guess are they going to call it I-65? That's odd. I think that's technically a highway. I don't think there's Interstate 65. But yeah, heading up to Lincoln. So they're going to have some much closer locations to me, so I should get a little bit more testing in with Red E. I know a lot of people are super excited about them, how quickly they've been deploying, but so far they've been pretty much missing from my experience here in California. And yeah, those ones are under LLC. And then the one in Stockton and Campbell are under Ready Charging. I don't know what the difference is between the two. But so Ready is another noteworthy CPO to be paying attention to with this NEVI funding. But anyway, I'd love to hear if you stayed till the end. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think. Are you excited about some of these? Right, like this is the one in Crescent. Okay, that was the On Point. I thought that was a Rivian for some reason, but again, based on what I'm seeing from On Point, I'm super excited to test out the Jackson's stores. It seems like a great location for a charger, and it seems like they know what they're doing with their charging. So I'm excited to see those going in, and I'll be taking at least, I think, one road trip up US 101 north of the Bay Area pretty soon. So yeah, I got to check out some of those chargers. Those are the ones that I'm sort of excited to see go in. Maybe the biggest surprise and the most exciting for me of what I've seen in the NEVI. And then again, just like seeing, like I said, I think Rivian and Electric Era are the other big winners for me as well. But I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think about the gaps that this is still going to leave in the public charging infrastructure in California? You know, what are you excited to see, like the updated loves, or which charging provider are you most interested in seeing? And you know, are you looking forward to these NEVI sites, or are you one of those ones who thinks that the NEVI just really isn't that necessary anymore, right? I've heard people say that as well. I am not in that camp. Like I said, as a baseline, just filtering by what sites meet NEVI compliance right now. Southern California is okay. The 395 corridor is barely covered. Highway 101 north of the Bay Area is barely covered. I-5 north of Sacramento is okay. But then you have these two massive gaps in the North State that are not covered at all right now by stations that meet NEVI requirements. And I think these are going to be really big. I think this is going to be super important. So I'd love to hear what you think. Are you as excited as I am? And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of this sort of a longer format, deeper dive video. Like I said, this is a full hour. And yeah, trying to talk about all of this. Like I said, that, and again, I'll leave the link in the description to the video. But as always, thank you for watching.